So my first question goes to Dr. Scott Walston of Boeing. As the nation's demographics change, how do we maintain support for institutions of higher education and corporations if their students, faculty, staff, and employees do not reflect the increasing share of the nation's national population that is non-white and non-male?
Right. Thanks, Norman. Yeah, I would say certainly as you described, the environment is a tough environment for diversity and inclusion for STEM students and professionals. That being said, there has been progress. If you look at the 2023 report on diversity in STEM sponsored by NSF, over the last 10 years, there has been an increase, I'd say a significant increase in the number of underrepresented minorities, having gone up by 10% over that 10-year period for those employed in the STEM field. So there is progress, but as Norman said, the environment is tough, and you could argue, are we going to have that same progress over the next 10 years? And also, if you look at, as the question said, do we as employers represent the nation in terms of our diversity? 51% of the country is women, 35% are in STEM. 31% of the country is underrepresented minorities, but only 24% in STEM. And so we don't represent the country, and certainly in some fields it's even worse. When I go to universities and engage with their engineering departments and look at the diversity there, in some cases I see incredible diversity, 50% women in some engineering departments, but more often than not you see something more like 25% female, and so that clearly doesn't reflect the population. So there are some places that are doing better than others. From a Boeing standpoint, we certainly put a lot of emphasis from a recruiting standpoint. Clearly, events like GMiS, we attend these and many others like NSBE, SHEP, SWE, and so on, over a dozen that we support, and preferentially recruit at events like this as opposed to other places. We've done a lot more with HBCUs over the last 5 or 10 years. And so I'd say we're making progress, but we do need to do better. So the question being, how do we kind of look at institutions that maybe aren't doing as well? And at least for us, when we think about recruiting, we're gonna go to those places that represent the diversity of the country and the region, because we do see a lot of regional differences as well. And so that's kind of how we treat it. And I'd be interested as we go through this panel. I talked a lot about kind of recruiting, and if you look at our early career professionals, the diversity is actually fairly good. It's about what the availability is coming out of universities. But I know for ourselves, and I'd say really the entire industry and maybe the country doesn't do a good job on retention and promotion. If you look at the underrepresented minorities, the females, there's a pretty significant decrease as they go through the careers in the percentage representation. So I think that's something that we need to face into. So.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to comment on that particular question before I move on?
Yeah, I'll just add from a civil engineering perspective how bad the numbers are. Practicing civil engineers for women are 14%. That number's been as high as 20%. If you look at all engineering, the numbers have been as high as 30%. The 2022 numbers, I don't have the 23s yet, shows graduating at 23% women. And there has not been a study since COVID, but I'm sure the numbers are worse. 70% of women, 70, leave the profession within 20 years of graduation. So not only do we not have a pipeline, it's a leaky pipeline.
Thank you.